Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers is a weekly program designed to answer all your questions, including the ones you didn't even know you had, and to clarify the endless debates around the wonderful and fascinating world of sexuality. Join us for real talk about sex from two experts in the field. Richard and Larry Siegel have over 50 years of experience as sex therapists, educators, counselors, and researchers. The Siegel Brothers are recognized around the world as trainers of medical and mental health professionals.
Hello and welcome to Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. I'm Dr. Richard Siegel, a certified sex therapist and supervisor.
And I'm Larry Siegel, a clinical sexologist and certified sexuality educator.
And my super awesome big brother.
Still my favorite role.
Cheers to you.
Cheers to you.
And Happy New Year to all of our Jewish friends celebrating and
yes, indeed.
watching. And cheers to everyone for joining us this week. Thank you and welcome to Sex Talk. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
What do you call it? A mountain river?
This is a meadow. It's
Very
a
nice.
Muramura sake. This is the meadow sake. A lot of other ones too. Just dragon snake.
I like this tradition.
Yeah.
So
I do as well.
This week on Sex Talk, we're going to talk about something a little bit different. We've been on a little roll and staying true to our theme, focusing a lot on men's sexual health issues. And as we're wrapping up National Sexual Health Week.
Yes, indeed.
We want to continue the theme, but tonight we want to take a bit of an odd turn and talk about pregnancy and obstetrics in particular, and men's role, or very often men's lack of role in that whole process, and how men can be, like we talk about all the time, how men can be better lovers, how men can be better new dads and better partners to new moms, and a very special interview with our very special guest, our favorite returning guest,
Yes, indeed.
Sex therapist extraordinaire from Maryland, Lori Shapiro, will be joining us in a little bit. So, it's ironic that obstetrics, the field that deals with bringing babies into the world, is about as sexless a field as you will find in medicine.
Right, and I like the way you often point out, just even as a kind of rhetorical question. You know, when we look at every other medical specialty, right? You have oncology based on the disease of cancer. You have urology, which is usually based on these urogenital disorders. You have cardiology, which is based on cardiovascular disease. Yet this really is the one field, obstetrics.
The only specialty in medicine where it's not a disease that makes you obstetrics patients.
Right.
It is, in fact, sex.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember when we had Don Lucas on, and he was talking about, asking students to think about how many times either have they had or just guess how many times do they think they might have sex in their lifetime. And out of that number, how many times were with the intention to make a baby?
Right.
So to go back to this old, sex is just for reproduction and get it over with and don't enjoy it too much. No. We know
Absolutely
even
not.
the most conservative, the most orthodox religious folks recognize that sex is about pleasure. And we may have different values and different rules about the nature of relationships, but in a so-called sanctified relationship, everything goes in about every faith group except the most extreme, and usually they find arbitrary reasons to have sex prohibitions.
Right. Which, by the way, are usually also promoted by men in those groups. And for those guys that really do have a problem with this idea that sex is about pleasure as much, if not more than reproduction, I invite you to do a search for the term clitoris. All right? If you look up that term and you find out what that's about, that may answer the question for you.
And a little hint, it has absolutely no reproductive function at all.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago with Dr. Karen from Jamaica, the thrusting, the penetrating, the ejaculating near the opening of the uterus is mostly for reproductive purposes.
Right.
right? Doesn't necessarily mean pleasure for women.
Exactly.
But it's just, we've been banging this drum for so long because it's so aggravating that this is the field more than any other where expectant parents should be and can be counseled on how. I mean, isn't this one of the greatest ironies of life? That the baby, the literal manifestation of a couple's, let's say at the very minimum, affection for each other, right? Let's hope it was at least an affectionate act. That
Or one
produced
beer
this-
too many.
Well, that's a sad reality
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah.
That too many babies are not conceived in passion, or at least sober.
Right. But
presence.
be that as it may, I'm sorry
Right.
to
Yeah.
throw you off.
But I mean, too often it seems part of the script that thing, the result of a couple's love, is the thing that ends up killing the erotic connection between them, right? As we've quoted a million times, our dear friend and colleague Esther Perel made her big splash with that book, Mating in Captivity.
That's right.
And it's usually babies that domesticate couples more than anything else.
That's right. And that striving for that domesticality,
Right.
the comfort, the safety, the trust, the predictability.
It's so unsexy.
It's
Still,
it kills eroticism.
Still to this day, one of my favorite couples I ever got to come for therapy. They were like in a panic. Young, hot, sexy couple, really into each other. And they were like, we need sex therapy. We just found out we're pregnant and we don't want to turn into our parents. Or they said, can you help us not turn into our parents? I said, yes, I can.
Yes.
They were great. Even they came to, they did sex therapy even after the baby was born. They would literally sit in session with the baby on the breast, talking about their sensual dates and what they're going to do next week and how they're going to make sure that the babysitter's lined up so they can have a grown-up time. And
See, that's what couples should aspire to.
yeah.
That really is. That's really good partnership. That's really good humanity.
But when the couple's leaving the maternity ward in the hospital and the baby's swaddled and everything, right, everything's all cleaned up and nice and neat, which maybe we can talk on another evening about that whole, maybe some dads shouldn't be in the delivery room.
Yeah, that'll be a separate show.
Yeah. But, they're on the way out and everybody's congratulating them and telling goodbye, good luck, enjoy your baby. And, oh, by the way, no sex for 6 weeks. And,
Without any explanation.
That's it. And that, I think, so often starts this kind of split or a wedge. Nobody says, what do you mean? Like, you mean we can't do anything? We can't touch each other for 6 weeks? Nobody says...
Nobody asks why.
Look, come back in. Let's sit down and talk for 10 more minutes before you go home with your baby, right? If there was an episiotomy or some complication during vaginal delivery, if there's something that needs healing, yes, it needs time, right? A couple can't have intercourse with fresh stitches, and I'm sure a woman's not going to want to. And if a guy's that much of a dick that he's going to insist on it, she shouldn't be with him in the first place. But that doesn't mean you can't have sex, right? Maybe they should say no intercourse for 6 weeks, but by all means stay connected erotically. Maintain the same erotic marriage, the same relationship that brought you to this maternity ward.
Even if it's a simple little recommendation of maybe you reorient your intimacy to more affectional, more erotic, more connecting kinds of things, and it doesn't have to be intercourse, because that gets so loaded, especially for new parents and especially new moms, that it's just so easy to shut down.
Yeah.
Right? So fortunately, we have a wonderful guest tonight who can speak on that better than most people.
Yes. So we'll take a little break and we'll be back with our interview with Lori Shapiro.
I'm Rachel Needle, co-director of Modern Sex Therapy Institutes. And Modern Sex Therapy Institutes is a continuing education provider. We provide continuing education for medical and mental health professionals around the world. And we have over 140 archived workshops on our website, so please check them out at www.modernsextherapyinstitutes.com. Also, we have a number of certification programs, including sex therapy, couples in sex therapy, LGBTQIA affirmative therapy, alternative relationships, transgender mental health care, medical sexology, sex education, and sex counselor certifications. In addition, we offer a PhD in clinical sexology. So please, again, go to our website, check out everything that we have to offer. A lot of our stuff is available solely online from the convenience of your own home or office. We do things live in 8 states and live via webinar as well.
And we are back, and as promised, very, very pleased to have another chance to talk with our favorite returning champion, our favorite guest, Lori Shapiro, sex therapist extraordinaire from the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. You are in, I always forget, Bethesda?
Rockville.
Of course, where the rock and roll chicks are.
Well, that's because one of my offices is in Bethesda, so that's why.
Okay.
Not currently. My office is now in my bedroom, like every other sex therapist.
Of course, right.
Yes, indeed. So great to see you again. It's been a while.
Thank you for having me and including me in these discussions. I enjoy them just as much as you guys do.
Glad.
Yeah, it's just that we have that. We can just talk about anything. So I'm glad. Yes, it's not like an interview where it's type backed and we're like learning about you or plugging your book or it's just old friends shooting the shit.
I need to finish my book so you can plug it. I've got some pages in. It's actually
okay.
I'm working on a workbook. I'm working on a workbook for clients because there are some workbooks out there that are related to love and stuff, but there's a lot of ones that are religiosity. And so mine is going to be very secular. I'm working on a secular workbook so that for clients in between sessions, they have set up tasks.
Secular and I suspect sexual as well.
Yes.
Like many of those couples workbooks avoid. Like most couples counselors. Right.
And would it be sexually secular or secularly sexual?
Both.
Yes, both
I'm just gonna keep the G and the J out. Everything else will be in. The D and the P will be in. So.
Good.
Nice.
Good.
So we have been talking about another ironically sexless area of healthcare, obstetrics. That's we've been saying this for years. Any other specialty, what makes people patients is disease, right? What makes people a cardiology patient, right? Clogged arteries in your heart. What makes people oncology patients, God forbid, cancer. But what makes people obstetrics patients?
Well, it's supposed to be, in theory, wellness. I mean, if you
but
think
it's sex.
Sex.
Sex is what
That's
makes
what makes
people obstetrics
patient. Yeah.
Right.
Well, if you think about it in the UK, like pregnancy isn't covered. There's no health care and you're not considered sick when you're pregnant in the UK, so you have to pay that out of pocket. Here, obstetrics is so focused now on fertility and infertility that they leave sex out completely. As I said to you guys off air before we come on, I've had the same doctor for the last 8 years. He knows I'm a sex therapist. He sends me patients all the time. We have great conversations. He's never once asked me about my sex life, if I'm having any pain. He doesn't even know what kind of birth control I use or don't use because I'm post 3 children and and he's like, I'm not menopausal, but he's never even said to me, are you using birth control? He has no idea. And he's a really nice guy and I really like him. And that's part of that education piece that I don't think our doctors are getting, that they should be asking about sex, because the minute, I get people into my office, they've been already to every doctor on the planet, especially women. They're having pain or dryness or whatever. They've had sexual trauma history, so they've been to therapy, but they've already been everywhere and nobody really asks them the nitty gritty, especially not their gynecologist. They say, I'm having pain. If I had a nickel for every time a doctor has said to a woman, have you tried having a glass of wine before sex? I would retire.
Yeah.
I hear this every day.
And that goes back before our time.
Oh, way before,
In the 70s, they used to say, maybe you should smoke a joint. And loosen up a little bit. Yeah.
Right. But and I want to say too that it's not any better for men and urologists either. I mean, for many urologists, the most they're ever going to ask a guy is maybe, do you have problem with your erections? and it really doesn't go anywhere past that. Maybe then they'll just check the prostate.
And I see that too. And I've also had a client recently who has had, for many years, chronic HPV. And so he has painful intercourse because he's had many, many, many treatments. And I said, so you went to a urologist. Did he think about a nerve conduction study? Maybe you've got some nerve damage happening. He said, no, he gave me Viagra. And I was like, but you don't have trouble getting an erection. You're having sex you're having painful sex.
Right.
Intercourse is painful.
Maybe
It's
you
giving
need
you
the
Viagra.
dermatologist, but they don't go there either.
That's right.
Right.
Right? It doesn't,
Right.
it doesn't matter that the genitals are covered with skin, which
Right.
dermatologists should be skilled at, but no, not that skin.
Right.
Well, the dermatologists, what they do is for that kind of thing is they just burn things off.
Oh, yeah.
And
Not
versus-
always. Sometimes they cut.
Or laser, or freeze. They might freeze or
Right.
laser.
When in
Yeah.
reality, if you know anything about HPV, if you just leave it alone, the outbreak will basically like bubble up and eventually fall off. Not to mention they can treat that with antivirals now, and they're not even offering that as an option. So yeah, I know men definitely have very similar experiences to women. And so you're expected as the patient to bring up the most sensitive subjects in the world with somebody who you see maybe once a year.
Right.
How is that? How are they not, as the physician, responsible to ask those questions?
Yeah. Well, we have to also remember, and I think this is important for people to understand as well, that, you know, with doctors, and I want to just for a moment remove all of the criticism that we have about their learning or lack of learning, what they really never get a chance to study in medical school. Sexuality is really completely absent. But just looking logistically at the time, there's a reason that so many doctors do live in fear of these kinds of questions. A, they really don't know how to answer them, and B, they don't have the time.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think in a lot of ways, we have to do a better job of letting doctors know that we are the ones to talk to these people.
Absolutely.
Send them to us, we'll talk to them.
That's right. They've got 20 minutes to check you from stem to stern. And for some people, it's a very uncomfortable position. And so they have to be extremely delicate. So now if I bring up a subject that, you know, maybe is going to be uncomfortable, I'm stuck with you for 30 minutes. But I can tell you one thing that my doctor does do that I really like is he examines you, and then you get dressed and you go into his office to discuss the examination. So at least he humanizes you.
Right.
You're
not
not
wearing a
very,
paper robe with your feet dangling off the.
yes, I refer to it as wearing a paper towel while you're sitting on deli paper. You're like,
exactly.
But yeah, he does do that. But again, I think that we definitely have to take onus as the patient to be able to say, hey, I'm having pain, or I'm having this, or, you know, people on SSRIs who are having difficulty reaching climax, or sexual arousal has decreased. You know, I think all of those things are really important to feel empowered and not embarrassed to bring that up.
And to go into the appointment thinking this is what I want to bring up, not this like the doctor's reaching for the doorknob and they go, oh doc, by the way,
right, exactly, that doorknob confession.
Yeah.
Well, if you went in with an abnormal mole to the doctor, you know you're going to go in there and go, I've got this weird funky mole and I'm worried this is cancer. If you're having problems with sex, it's obviously going to affect and impact your relationship. And if you're not comfortable doing it by yourself, you know, either come in with a list, you can email your doctor in advance and telling, I'm having this issue and I really want to discuss it when I'm in. Or bring a friend with you, bring your husband with you, bring your partner with you, bring your lover with you, so that you don't have to do it by yourself if you don't feel empowered enough. Or even today in COVID, they only let one patient in at a time. FaceTime them right in. I mean, you you know, you put them on FaceTime and they're there with you. There's no reason that you can't do that. No doctor is going to say, no, you can't have your partner, your significant other on FaceTime when I'm asking questions. They're not going to reject that.
Excellent. So back to this after baby thing. What's your advice for new dads to be better? You know, to first of all not let the baby kill the erotic connection between them. Well, not get left out.
I say don't go watch the birth. If you think you're a squeamish person to begin with, don't look below the little, don't look below the magic
stay
curtain.
up next to her head.
Right. Stay next to mommy. Don't look below the magic curtain. Nothing pretty's happening down there. I'll just tell you that.
Right.
But I think that
Stick
for
with
men,
ice chips.
Yeah, exactly. Because
I
certain
think
things you cannot unsee.
exactly. I think that, which is the whole dark web conversation for another day.
Yeah.
But I think that for men, there's a couple of things. When mom and baby come home, we talk a lot about intimacy and how intimate it is with your baby, and not in a sexual way. If you think about it, I tell dads all the time, like, for mom right now, she's bonding with the baby and doesn't have a lot of needs for physical intimacy, but she's touching it and holding it and kissing it and cuddling. I say, Dad, you do that too.
Yeah.
You can have the same amount of closeness and bonding.
Skin to skin.
Yep.
Right, exactly. When I had my first child, because I was nursing, I came up with a brilliant idea. I was like, it was also kind of, I didn't want to do it. It was a little bit of laziness. But I said to Dad, I was like, so every night you will do bath time. That will be your special time alone with your child. Of course, I videotaped it constantly. My poor daughter. There's hours of video with the first one of bath time. By the time we got to the third one, there's maybe 3. But that was his special time where he had that bonding thing that they did together, and that the child looked forward to.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
and I would say, as far as the 6-week period thing, that makes women crazy, because men are counting. They're literally counting.
But see, the message is so wrong. There's no sex for 6 weeks. Nobody's saying, what does that mean?
Right.
Why don't they say, like, if there was an episiotomy and there's stitches, maybe we'll lay off intercourse for a while, but please stay connected.
Other things can be done, sure.
Don't forget how you made this baby. And don't let it get ruined.
And you hear all the time about the level of exhaustion. You know what? Learn to not do the laundry for a few days. Learn to leave dishes in the sink. Learn to be okay with a little bit of mess and clutter. That's fine. Isn't it better to get into bed together exhausted and cuddle and snuggle and feel connected and deal with the dishes the next day? And I think we get into this mindset, oh my God, there's so much to do. And then the baby's not sleeping through the night and we're so tired. And I always say, that whole idea of when the baby naps, you nap, that includes dad. Dad should be napping with mom when the baby's napping. That's enough. I find napping, one of my favorite pastimes. I love a good nap, and laying and taking a nap, there's plenty of intimacy that can be developed. Again, you can go skin to skin. You could both get into bed completely naked. Mom may feel like, oh, I'm not back to myself, but dad can be like, listen, you just had my baby. This is amazing. And I just want to be close to you, and having the conversation. Women shut down sex. We know this when they feel that every touch is a green light for intercourse. If we tell mom, I'm not trying to have sex with you, I want to be near you, make her feel like she's not always green lighting, then the intimacy and the touch will increase. I think all the other stuff, the chores and all this, we get so wrapped up in, I'm working, I'm doing chores, I'm with all that stuff is irrelevant. I don't know anyone in modern times who is obviously not socioeconomically challenged, anyone middle class or above, who doesn't have enough clothing to go for 2 weeks. I mean, your average woman has 30 pairs of underwear. I mean, I think that's how you help dad, is you let dad know that this is his experience too, and that just reminding mom he wants to be connected, and his needs will be met through that as well.
Right. But I think one of the biggest sells, and I think one of the toughest sells in all of this, is to convince both these men and these women to stop focusing on performance. Because whether it's sexual performance or when it comes to cooking and the laundry and all those other types of performing that people get stuck in that they have to be doing. And you want to get rid of all that performance. This idea, it's an old term, kind of out of favor, but, I still like the term making love. And it's a chance to really emphasize what the focus of that connection is, not the performance, not the intercourse, but just like you were saying, the connection, the being together. And I absolutely agree and want to reiterate the point that you made, that so many women in general, new moms in particular, shut down at the very idea of this touch leads to a performance requirement. And it just,
and I have no issue with pornography. I have no issue with pornography in general. Like, I think porn has its place in society like everything else. But I think that not just men learn about sex through watching porn and what they expect, but so do women. And I think that that's where a lot of the performance stuff comes into play, because I've seen that, and that's how I'm supposed to act. And then what happens is you pop out a few kids, you know, we've got work and kids and all that, and then we're like, I don't want to perform anymore. I'm tired. So I think if we teach women when they're younger that they don't need to ever perform, that what they need to be doing is focusing on their own sexual pleasure, communicating how that they receive that pleasure, and allowing their partners to do the same with them, we won't even get into that trap. And I think that that's part of the early education.
And I agree, but that's such a flipped script. It really is such a flipped script that, you know, and while I do think we need to go there, because part of that performance isn't really just about, you know, like you say, watching porn or something like that, but it's that performance, which is the focus of how women are socialized. They have to do for everybody else.
Right.
Do for their family, do for their partner, do for everybody. So, and why, as much as I agree with you, and that's exactly what I do, you know, like to tell women, I think we have to really look at the context here, that it really is, we're recommending the opposite of really the way most women are still socialized.
But guys miss the point too, because if you know, I like to ask guys, what are you getting off on when you're looking at porn? And they look at me like I'm demented. But if their partner, in their real life partner, is truly enjoying and immersed in pleasure, that is the hottest performance of any that's going to get him off, if he would get out of his head and notice.
Yeah.
And that's what I talk a lot with couples about, is keeping your eyes open. I literally tell women, you don't know what a real orgasm is until you've done it with all the lights on and your eyes open. When you've done that, you've reached nirvana. That's nirvana. When you could be so relaxed and so engaged with your partner, you know, I mean, I have no problem with the highlight reel. Everybody's got a little bit of the highlight reel here and there, but that when you're really engaged in that process, that's the real difference. Yeah. And it doesn't have to include intercourse. I think some of the hottest sex I ever had was making out completely clothed, you know, rubbing all over each other. That's where like the real sexy fun stuff happens. And that doesn't have to change. And I definitely think that if we socialize young women to understand, it is in our nature to some degree, not all women, but to be nurturing and to want to take care, but learning balance. I work so much with women on having balance. I joke with women all the time. I'm like, my parenting style, I call it passive neglect. Because I've got to be able to take care of me and can't always take care of you. I mean, obviously, like newborns, 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, you know, they need 100% focus. But by the time you're 6, you're unloading the dishwasher so I can sit on the couch and watch Jeopardy. You know, it's about finding balance. And if you can find balance in your desire to care for others, but also putting your own care in that space. But then you ask yourself, and I ask women all this all the time, what are you avoiding by not taking care of yourself? What are you avoiding? Because if you're taking care of him and his problems and his substance issues and this one's math stuff and this, what are you avoiding doing for yourself, and why? What feelings does that elicit for you? And you'd be amazed that women really take the pause of like, wow, I guess I, you know, fear that I'll be happy if I take care of, you know, there's a myriad of things. But I think men also need to take care of themselves. And I think sometimes men get the short end of the stick. You know, I've had women say, well, he has to initiate. That's his job. And I'm like, but that's not hot. That's not hot. If he always has to do everything where sex is concerned, he's going to lose interest. He wants to feel wanted just like you do. I'm like, and if you're not comfortable doing something outside your comfort zone, get into bed naked. There's no better signal to a man that you want to have sex than if you get into bed naked. I think that sends a clear-cut message. And I think that men deserve to feel wanted just like we do. They want to be wanted and coveted. They want to feel like their partner's into them, and they deserve that. And that's where true good sex happens, where there's reciprocity.
Well, there's a perfect place
Yeah.
to wrap up. That's awesome. And
Really.
that's why we
Really.
love having you on.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. You know what? I love to do this. I love to have these conversations and hope that the people who are hearing it really take it to heart and either find a good sex therapist or read. There's a million great books out there if you don't want to participate right now in therapy, but look out there. I mean, ASECT, obviously, I've had tons of people find me on the ASECT website, or plug in sex therapy. I get calls from all over the place because the reality is people want to learn how to be able to do these things, and they're all doable.
Absolutely.
The wonderful Laurie Shapiro, Mwah, Rockville,
love you.
Maryland. We'll talk.
Love you guys too. Excellent.
Yes,
have a great night.
You too. Stay safe.
I will. You too. Ciao.
Thanks. And again, I love talking to her. I think we can talk to Laurie all night. And thank you again so much for doing this. Really, we just adore you. And it's such an important time. I mean, new couples really do. New parents do tend to struggle with these issues all the time. And nobody's really there to talk to them about it. Unfortunately, as you were saying in the very beginning, and as Dr. Shapiro was saying during the interview, that in a way, obstetricians are the most perfectly positioned to talk about this stuff, but they don't.
Because they're not trained. They're not comfortable. Remember that study all the way back from the early 90s that we're still quoting? Was it a Procter & Gamble thing? I can picture the slides, where the number one reason given by patients for not bringing up, asking these important sexual questions was fear of embarrassing their doctor. It's like, that is not the patient's job. It is the clinician's job to preempt the patient's feeling any embarrassment or discomfort.
Right, exactly.
And before we leave, I know you have a favorite tip for new dads.
I do, and actually, it's more for new moms.
For pestering.
Yeah,
new
it's
dads.
really more a tip for new moms. That, because again, we often see this, and this is a very common dynamic. That toward the end of the pregnancy, for many women, maybe midway through the pregnancy, they do start losing sexual desire. They do start thinking more about themselves as mothers.
It may peak right before delivery.
Oh no, absolutely. For a lot of women, it absolutely does. But I'm just talking about this basic, this process of sort of a transition, exactly, from lover to mother. And very often, that may start, in the pregnancy.
Different kind of bonding.
Right.
Different.
But the upshot is, from a lot of guys' perspectives, no more sex.
What about me?
That's right. And then after the baby is born, right? They're very understanding for the first couple of weeks, and then again it starts in with this, what about me? What about me? And so many new moms do complain that their male partners are just pestering them to have sex. And again, it's so easy to shut down, and it can be an issue. And what I do like women to know and understand, it doesn't have to be an argument. It doesn't have to be a fight. Here's a simple fix. If a guy, you're a new mom, your partner is pestering you for sex, without having to get into anything or explain anything, a simple, here, you hold the baby, would probably do the trick. Because we know what happens to men if they hold a baby.
The same thing that happens to women if they even hear a baby crying.
That's right. All right. So what's going to happen to that guy, as horny as he may be, holding that baby is going to cause his testosterone levels to plummet. His oxytocin and prolactin levels will increase significantly. Both of those kind of contribute to eliminating sex drive. So it's a real good way to engage your male partner as a partner in those moments without having to get into a big to-do, big dramatic fight about anything.
The baby throws up on him, that's a bonus. And
That's right.
He's really not in the mood anymore.
That's right, absolutely. So, again, it's about understanding how this stuff works. Unfortunately, we don't really get any of this stuff from the medical professionals, so it really is up to us to learn about these things on our own. And this is why I really do, need to keep this pitch going about people should call a sex therapist. talk to a sex therapist. Even if it's a single session consultation,
Right.
that's probably your best resource.
Right. Terrific.
Yeah.
So that'll do it for us for this week, for another episode of Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers.
Yes, indeed. And thank you again for watching. And again, Happy New Year. And for those of you who fast, hope it's an easy fast. Cheers.
See you next Friday and every Friday at 7 on the East Coast for Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers.
Thanks for watching Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. Join us each week on Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can also follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay on top of the latest developments in the ever-changing world of sex and sexuality.